caught my wife cheating and vanished without a trace. Years later, she's still trying to track me down. The envelope had no sender, just my name, printed neatly like a warning. Inside was a photo, my wife, smiling at another man. And beneath it, a single question scrawled in ink. Are you sure she's loyal? The envelope sat on the passenger seat, plain and unmarked except for my name and address. No sender, no return label. Just my name, Ethan Carter, printed neatly, like a message waiting to be read. Something about it felt wrong. My fingers hovered over the flap as my heartbeat picked up. A part of me wanted to toss it aside, dismiss it as junk mail, maybe some idiotic prank. But another part, the part that didn't ignore red flags, told me to open it. Inside was a single photograph. Lauren, my Lauren, stood too close to a man I didn't recognize. Her posture was relaxed, her body angled toward him, her smile soft, intimate. The kind of smile she used to give me. Beneath the photo, a single line was scrawled in messy handwriting. Are you sure she's loyal? A cold sensation crept up my spine. My grip on the paper tightened. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Some sick joke, I muttered, trying to convince myself. But deep down, a voice I didn't want to acknowledge whispered back, what if it's not? 3.5 years? That's how long Lauren and I had been married. I still remembered the first time I saw her, at a friend's backyard BBQ. She was the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. Confident, sharp-witted, effortlessly beautiful. And for some reason she had been drawn to me. Our love had been fast, intense. 8 months after that BBQ, we were exchanging vows, moving into a sleek apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city. We had plans, dreams, a future we were supposed to build together. But lately, things had felt off. Lauren had been coming home later than usual. When I asked, she had reasonable explanations. Late meetings, dinner with colleagues, traffic. But then there were the phone calls. The ones that ended abruptly when I walked into the room. The vague, half-hearted answers whenever I asked about her schedule. The way she used to lean into me when we sat on the couch. But now, more often than not, she kept a slight distance. I had told myself I was imagining it. That she was just stressed. That every marriage had rough patches. But now, I held a piece of evidence in my hands. Was it real? Or was I just paranoid? A part of me wanted to crumple it up, throw it away, pretend I never saw it. But another part, the part that refused to be blind, knew I couldn't ignore it. Because the only question that mattered now was the one I had been too afraid to ask. Did I ever really know my wife at all? Lauren had changed. Maybe it had been gradual, slipping through the cracks of our busy lives, or maybe I had just been too blind to see it earlier. But now, after that anonymous letter, I couldn't unsee the signs. She checked her phone constantly, scrolling with tense fingers, her expression unreadable. At first, I told myself it was nothing, just work, just stress. But then, the late nights became routine. Once a week turned into 2, then 3. Then, almost every night. Another late meeting? I asked one evening, trying to sound casual. Lauren didn't look up from her laptop. I told you, I'm working toward a promotion. I get that, but... She snapped the screen shut. Do you have any idea how much pressure I'm under? Or do you just not care? I stared at her. Of course I care. Then stop interrogating me like I'm doing something wrong. Her voice was sharp, defensive. You travel for work all the time. Should I start questioning you every time you leave? It wasn't an answer. The space between us grew wider. She no longer reached for my hand absent-mindedly, no longer kissed me goodnight. When we lay in bed, there was a gap between us that neither of us seemed willing to close. One night, I turned toward her, ran my fingers lightly down her arm. She flinched. Not tonight. Ethan, I have an early meeting. Lauren, come on, it's been weeks. She sighed, rolling away. Why do you always make this about you? Can't you understand that I'm exhausted? But exhaustion wasn't what I saw in her eyes. It was avoidance, guilt, lies, and I wasn't imagining it. The breaking point came in the form of a scrap of fabric, pink lace peeking out from under the passenger seat of her car. Lauren had come home late again, carrying grocery bags like an alibi she thought I needed. I had gone to help her unload when I saw it, half hidden beneath the seat. A bra. Lauren's bra. I stood frozen, my mind racing. Had she changed in the car? Why? Had someone else been sitting there? Had she taken it off for someone else? I clenched my fists around the grocery bag, forcing myself to breathe. If I confronted her now, she would have excuses. She would turn it around on me, make me feel crazy for even asking. So I didn't say a word. I waited. I watched. 3 days later, I set the table with care. Candles flickering softly, a bottle of her favorite wine breathing on the counter, a bouquet of red roses placed neatly in the center. A surprise, a reminder of what we used to be. When Lauren walked through the door, she barely glanced at the setup before letting out a small laugh. Not delight, not gratitude, amusement. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. I studied her face. I thought we could have dinner, just us. She slipped off her heels, shaking her head. I can't. I have dinner plans with coworkers. Cancel. My voice was steady. She gave me a pitying smile. Ethan, come on. It's just work. No one turns down a romantic evening with their husband unless there's something or someone more important waiting for them. My stomach twisted, but I swallowed the anger, forcing a smile. All right, maybe another night. She nodded, already heading to the bedroom. I watched her disappear down the hall, my jaw tightening. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't crazy. Something was wrong, and I was done waiting for the truth to reveal itself. As soon as she stepped into the shower, I made my move. Her purse was on the counter, her phone inside. I could take it, look through her messages, check her call log. But if she caught me, I'd be the bad guy, so I did something smarter. I pulled out my work phone, turned on the location tracker, and slid it into the side pocket of her car. She wouldn't notice. When she left that night, I didn't stop her. I didn't ask questions. I simply picked up my personal phone, opened the tracking app, and watched the little blue dot move across the city. She had no idea, but I was finally about to learn the truth. The little blue dot moved steadily across the screen, cutting through the city like it had a purpose. Lauren's car wasn't heading home. Instead, it was moving deeper into downtown, toward an area I knew too well. Upscale restaurants, dimly lit bars, luxury hotels. My pulse hammered in my ears as I watched her route unfold. She stopped. A familiar name appeared on the map. A bar we had been to once, back when we were still us. I gripped the steering wheel, parked a block away, and waited. My fingers tapped against my knee, my breath shallow. Every passing second stretched unbearably long. Then, after nearly an hour, the door swung open. Lauren stepped out. She wasn't alone. The man beside her was tall, confident, dressed in a tailored suit that screamed money and power. His hand hovered near her back, close but not quite touching, as if waiting for the right moment. My stomach twisted. Then he leaned in, whispered something against her ear. She smiled, the soft, knowing kind. The kind she used to save for me. The moment his hand slid around her waist, I told myself she would pull away, that this was all a misunderstanding. But she didn't move. She let him. And when he kissed her, she kissed him back. Something inside me shattered. The world blurred. My breath came in short, uneven gasps. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to move, to do something, but I just sat there, frozen, watching my wife betray me in real time. Then they got into his car. I forced myself to snap out of it, started the engine, and followed at a safe distance. They weren't heading to another bar. They weren't going to dinner. They were going to a hotel. The final blow. I watched as they disappeared through the glass doors, laughing, leaning into each other, no hesitation, no guilt, just two people who had done this before. For a split second, I imagined storming inside, dragging her out, demanding answers. But what was the point? I already had my answer. She had made her choice. And it wasn't me. I tightened my grip on the wheel, my chest caving in under the crushing weight of it all. Then, without another thought, I pressed the gas and drove away. I had no idea how far I drove. The city lights faded, replaced by the endless stretch of highway, my mind looping the same images. Her smile, The way she leaned into him, the way their lips met, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I had lost her. Not just tonight, not just in that hotel room. I had lost her a long time ago. I just hadn't realized it. A neon sign flickered ahead, cutting through the darkness. A bar. Small, almost deserted. The kind of place where people went to forget. I pulled over. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of alcohol and regret. I sat at the counter, ordered something strong, and downed it in one go. The burn barely registered. A few minutes later, someone slid onto the stool beside me. "Rough night?" a deep voice asked. I turned. A man, mid-40s, dressed in a worn leather jacket, studying me with an expression that was equal parts curiosity and understanding. "You could say that," I muttered. He nodded, as if he already knew. "Betrayal?" I exhaled sharply, staring down at my empty glass. "Something like that." He signaled the bartender for another round, then looked at me again. "So what are you going to do about it?" Ray didn't need to hear the whole story. He already knew. The moment I sat down at that bar, shoulders hunched, jaw clenched, drowning in the kind of silence only a betrayed man understands, he knew. "Let me guess," he said, tilting his glass slightly. "You caught her, and now you're trying to figure out if you should burn it all down or walk away." I exhaled, gripping my drink. "I saw enough." Ray nodded like he had heard it 1,000 times before. His face was lined with experience, early 40s, sharp eyes that had probably seen too much. "Welcome to the club, kid." His voice was rough but not unkind. "But let me tell you something. You've got two choices. Let this destroy you, or use it to rebuild something better." "And what did you do?" I asked, my voice hollow. He smirked, a slow, knowing expression. "Walked away before it could eat me alive. Best damn decision I ever made." Then he leaned in slightly. "If you really want out, I know a place. A trailer out on my land, far from all this bullshit. You go there, start fresh, disappear for as long as you need." I stared at him. The idea of just leaving sounded crazy. But the more I thought about Lauren, her smile as she leaned into another man, the way she kissed him like it was the most natural thing in the world, the more I realized there was nothing left worth staying for. I nodded. "Tell me more." That night, I drove home knowing it would be the last time I walked through that door. Lauren was already asleep, curled up under the blankets, looking peaceful, like she hadn't spent the night tangled in someone else's arms. I stood there for a long moment, waiting for something to rise inside me. Anger, sadness, nostalgia, but there was nothing, just emptiness. The next morning, while she was at work, I started packing, not in a rush, not with shaking hands or a pounding heart. I moved carefully, methodically, taking only the things that mattered. Clothes, personal documents, the essentials. Nothing that would raise suspicion. I didn't ask her why. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to hear more lies. I was past the point of caring. Each day, while she was at work, I took another piece of my life and removed it from our home. Slowly, quietly. By the time I was finished, it was like I had never existed there at all. Then, one night, Lauren casually mentioned she had a work trip. "I'll be gone for a few days," she said, barely glancing up from her phone. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "Sounds good." She had no idea she was giving me the perfect exit. The moment her car disappeared down the street, I got to work. I packed up everything that was left, what little remained of me in this place. I took my time, making sure nothing important was left behind. The house felt eerily silent, as if it already knew this was goodbye. When I was finished, I stood in the middle of the living room, looking around one last time. This had once been ours, a place filled with laughter, late-night conversations, whispered dreams about the future. Now, it was just a shell, a place where love had rotted from the inside out. I walked into the kitchen, pulled off my wedding ring, and placed it carefully on the counter. Next to it, on a small slip of paper, I wrote 4 simple words. Hope it was worth it. Then I walked out the door, and this time I wasn't coming back. Ray's land was nothing fancy. The trailer was small, a little worn, but it was quiet, peaceful, free. No Lauren, No lies. No restless nights spent wondering if the woman sleeping beside me was thinking about someone else. For the first time in months, I could breathe. Mornings were spent running along empty roads, the cold wind biting at my skin, waking me up in ways coffee never could. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was comforting. I met people who spoke plainly, who didn't pretend to be something they weren't. Out here, there were no fake smiles, no forced laughter, no whispered secrets behind closed doors. I started working with Ray, fixing up old motorcycles, helping around the property. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Something solid. Something mine. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost. Lauren came back to an empty house. The calls started almost immediately. First, just a few, then dozens, then hundreds, desperate voicemails, frantic text messages, each one more panicked than the last. Ethan, where are you? We need to talk. Please, just answer me. I don't know what's going on, but this isn't funny. Come home. I never responded. Then she sent a photo, a picture of the kitchen counter, the wedding ring, the note. What does this mean? I turned off my phone. She even got her mother to call me. That one almost made me laugh. The woman who had never cared for me was suddenly worried? No thanks. By the end of the week, the messages slowed. By the end of the month, they stopped completely. Lauren had finally understood. I wasn't coming back. Not now. Not ever. I thought I had escaped her. I thought I had left that life behind, buried it in the past where it belonged. Out here in the quiet of the mountains, in the small town where no one knew me as Lauren's husband, I was free. Months had passed since I walked away, and I had built something new, something that belonged only to me. My days were simple, honest. I worked with my hands, breathed in the fresh air, surrounded myself with people who didn't lie, who didn't pretend. For the first time in years, I felt whole. And then she found me. I was sitting in my usual spot at the coffee shop, enjoying the rare moment of stillness before heading to the shop to work on a bike Ray had taken in. The door chimed, but I barely registered it. Until I felt it. A presence. A weight pressing down on my shoulders, a sense of something familiar and unwanted crawling up my spine. I looked up. Lauren. Standing just a few feet away, eyes wide, lips parted slightly as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. For a second, everything froze. The sound of the cafe faded, the conversations, the clinking of cups. None of it mattered. It was just me and her, locked in a moment neither of us had expected. Then reality slammed back into me. My fingers tightened around my coffee cup, my jaw clenched as every emotion I had buried came surging back. Anger, disgust, and beneath it all, a small, unwelcome flicker of curiosity. She moved first. She ran toward me, breathless, like someone who had just stumbled upon a lost treasure. Ethan! Oh my God, I finally found you! I didn't say a word. I didn't move. I just watched as she stood there, chest rising and falling rapidly, searching my face for something. Relief? Forgiveness? She wasn't going to find either. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then her lips trembled, and before I could process it, she started crying. Ethan, please. Let me explain. I should have left. I should have stood up and walked right past her like she was a stranger. But I didn't. Maybe I wanted to hear her suffer through the words. Maybe I wanted to watch her unravel. They found out. Her voice broke. About the affair. The company found out. The rumors spread, and I lost everything. I exhaled slowly, my expression unreadable. Your boss? I asked flatly. She nodded, looking away. He got demoted. Blamed it all on me. He said I was the one who initiated it, that I was reckless and irresponsible. She let out a bitter laugh, wiping at her face. And then he left me. Just like that. He used me, Ethan, and when it stopped benefiting him, he tossed me aside like garbage. I tilted my head slightly. Sounds familiar. She flinched. Good. But that's not even the worst part, she whispered. The worst part is, the moment you left, I realized. She reached for my hand, her touch warm and desperate. I realized that it was always you. I thought I wanted something else, something more, but I was wrong. You were everything, Ethan. I just, I just didn't see it in time. I stared at her hand on mine, then slowly, deliberately pulled away. You realized all of this after losing your job? After he left you? I asked, my voice calm. No, yes, I mean, it's not just that, it's everything. The silence, the emptiness. I had everything, and then suddenly, I had nothing. You had me. My voice was sharper now, and you threw it away. You didn't hesitate. You didn't stop and think, not once. You just did it. Because at that moment, I wasn't enough for you. Tears streaked down her cheeks. Ethan, please. I know I can't erase what I did, but can we just start over? Can't we try again? She looked at me the way she used to, like I was the only thing in the world. The difference was, I knew better now. No. She let out a quiet sob, gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Ethan, I can't live without you. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. You should have thought about that before you walked into that hotel with him. She broke completely then, covering her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. The cafe felt unbearably small, suffocating with the weight of her regret. But I wasn't done yet. As I stood, preparing to leave, I glanced down at her one last time. Let me ask you something, I said, my voice even. If I had been the one who cheated, if I had been the one who betrayed you, would you have forgiven me? She froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. The hesitation was all I needed. I smirked, shaking my head. That's what I thought. Then I walked away, and this time, I didn't look back. Lauren didn't give up. Even after our confrontation, after she sat there in that cafe with tears streaming down her face, she still clung to the idea that there was something left between us. Emails started coming in, long, desperate messages about how she had changed, how she had learned from her mistakes. At first, they were filled with apologies, then promises, then pleas. I never responded. But one day, over a year later, a final message arrived. I've accepted a new job in another state, a fresh start. I don't want to run from my past anymore. I want to fix it. Ethan, if you come with me, we could start over. No baggage, no pain, just us. I read it twice, once with curiosity, the second time with indifference. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I simply didn't care. I had moved on. She hadn't. For the first time in over a year, I responded, I wish you the best, Lauren, but the past is the past. Let it go. Then, without hesitation, I blocked her email. That was the last time I ever heard from her. Lauren Parker was finally gone. My life didn't change overnight. There was no dramatic realization, no sudden moment where everything clicked into place. But one day, I woke up and realized that I was happy, genuinely happy. I had built something for myself, something real. I spent my days doing work I enjoyed, surrounded by people who didn't wear masks. I met new people, went on dates, let myself open up again. Not in a rush, but at my own pace. I was no longer the man sitting in a car watching his wife betray him. No longer the man drowning in whiskey, questioning where it had all gone wrong. I was just Ethan, stronger, freer, finally living on my own terms. Then, one morning, a text came in from an unknown number. Do you believe in fate? I stared at it for a moment, brow furrowing. Lauren? Number that door was closed. A mistake? Maybe. Or maybe something else? I chuckled, shaking my head. Then, did the only thing that felt right. I deleted the message. For the first time in years, I didn't need to know who was looking for me, because now, I was the one in control of my own life.